Everyone, Jeremy here from the Quartering, and today we lost Sir, and I should remind you it should be pronounced this way, Sir Sean Connery, at the age of 90. Now I think like feeling genuine sadness over a Hollywood celebrity passing that you've never met is probably not super healthy. Although when I was younger, I remember losing Kurt Cobain, and that just bummed me out for several days. So I can understand why people maybe feel this way, but what I think is worth celebrating, and what I want to start off by saying is, dude made it to 90. That is an amazing run for a man. 90 years old is something that the overwhelming majority of us will never see. It's kind of like losing a dog, a Labrador, let's say. Like when I lost Indy, he was 14 and a half, which far exceeds the life expectancy of a Labrador, way on the long end, the equivalent of, living a human living to 120 or 130. While it sucked because I knew him closely, on the outside looking back, dude had an amazing run. I don't know if I was necessarily old enough, I discovered James Bond films when it was Pierce Brosnan. I thought he was fine. He was no Sean Connery now that I look back at it, obviously, and there are many great Bond actors. But when I really got introduced to Sean Connery, like I think many of my generation, it was probably The Rock. Him and Nicolas Cage escaping Alcatraz still probably holds up today. I haven't seen it in a while, but I bet you it still holds up. Lots of intense action scenes and overwhelming suspense. Probably one of Nick Cage's best films, and he's made probably tens of thousands of movies by this time, and because he still manages to be broke and can never stop working. But what I thought was interesting is some of Twitter's replies, standing on his grave, speaking ill of him. It just goes to, highlight some of just the worst humans on the planet, and most of them seem to reside on Twitter. A quick search of some of the popular tweets around him will bring up some just revolting things. And then mainstream media is already standing on his grave and disparaging him. It's really disgusting. This is just hours after it's been announced. We can look at just 4 minutes ago about Sean Connery. His 007's movies were chock full of toxic masculinity and misogyny, as were most of the works that Connery were a part of. I'd be sadder, but Sean Connery's record of misogyny ruined any respect I had for him. Good riddance to him and his toxic masculinity. How about this? You are an awful person. Have a great day. The misogyny community may never recover from the loss of Sean Connery. I mean, are you kidding me? Sean Connery was a highly problematic person. I thought Sean Connery's misogyny was more common knowledge than it clearly is. There are thousands of tweets of these people standing on his grave. Why Republicans love Sean Connery is he took misogyny to new levels. Of course you had to get this. You had to get this to Trump. Of course. That's just normal leap of faith it's not even a leap of faith for Twitter. And then, of course, you have the ism word, which apparently I can't say on Twitter anymore. In a famously chauvinistic interview with Barbara Walters, Sean Connery stated that it was okay for men to defend themselves from time to time. Oh, I don't know the context of that, but if it was an interview with Barbara Walters, it was probably 30 years ago. Yeah, I'll miss Sean Connery. There's something very romantic about his era of the Bond films, even the casual ism. But hey, I'll keep that to myself. I'm going to preemptively assume that you have no response to this, but what in the heck does that have to do? Oh, no, sorry. Oh, yeah, with Sean Connery's horrible ism. I mean, like, rip Sean Connery, you were one of the one and only James Bond, a reflection of your time, the ism included. Connery's been dead for an hour, and the Karens are already painting him as a misogynist. It was the 60s, Karen. Our parents used to handle us in public with impunity, and the ism was rampant. Maybe let us mourn for 5 seconds and read some history. This is, of course, the same people that continue to lambast. Oh my gosh, why can't I think of his name? H.P. Lovecraft. Of course, many of the things and ideas that H.P. Lovecraft had were just backwards and incorrect. But he also lived more than 100 years ago when, you know, he was a product of his time. That doesn't necessarily remove any responsibility for the things he said, but it does add some context to it. And you just can't hold somebody to the same standards of 2020 who lived in 1905, okay? Things were different back then. And look at what he named his cat. And then if we look at this freaking BBC article, you have Sir Sean Connery, the actor who defined James Bond, has passed at 90. Oh, okay, well, that's reasonable. And they write a little bit about him. Very little, actually. Just a few paragraphs about him. And then immediately, of course, Connery made the character of James Bond his own, blending ruthlessness and sardonic wit. Many critics didn't like it, and some of the reviews were scathing, but the public did not agree. So, again, even back in the 50s, the critics had no idea, no finger on the pulse of actual regular people. The action scenes, the romance, and exotic locations were a winning formula. In truth, Bond is now a museum piece. The portrayal of women impossibly dated. The action scenes are still thrilling, but the hookups are often bordered on non-consensual. Thankfully, it's been a while since 007 tapped a woman on the backside and forced a kiss. But Connery's performance was of its time, enjoyed by millions. Yeah, of course. Leave it to the BBC, as Blake points out. You just couldn't help yourself, could you, BBC? You just had to make a legendary actor's passing about my ism. I mean, that's exactly what this is. Again, I don't shed tears for Hollywood actors' passings, but I do respect the body of work that Sean Connery has, and I respect that the dude kept cranking it till 90 years old. I hope wherever he is now, there's a wonderful series of never-ending golf courses. As I remember, he did fondly love the game of golf. And you see a lot of people like based BBC triggering all the snowflakes. Non-consensual. I mean, look, you kiss a woman in this modern day, like, this is why you're going to end up with so many single men and women, by the way. I'm not saying everything Bond did in his movies is above board, but I'm also saying that we've gone so far the other way that you have entire generations of men, an entire generation of men afraid to make the first move, or the second move, or the third move, or the fourth move. You have an entire generation of women who have been programmed to, to be offended by a man giving her his number. You're going to have a whole bunch of single, old, unhappy people, and it's pathetic. The world needs more James Bonds and less Karens. That's a fact, or whatever you would call a male version Kent. I'm not sure. I hope you enjoyed this video. Rest in peace, Sean Connery. We'll talk to you again real soon.